Hello, everyone, and welcome to our November 2025 EL check-in. And thank you to everyone who's able to join us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. I know a lot of you have holiday plans in the waiting. Today we're going to talk about high school ELs and the pathway to graduation. As always, we begin with our community agreements, as you see on the screen. Mostly just be engaged. If you have questions, ask them. There are no silly questions. Any question's a good question, and we'll try our best to address it, but just know we may not always address it right away, but I will try to find the answers for you. And my quote for today, a good teacher is like a candle. It consumes itself to light the way for others. From Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Not sure I said that right, but good quote anyway. All right. So today we're going to be talking about who are ELs and some enrollment considerations and legal requirements for them at the secondary level. The identification process, looking at transcripts, placement and coursework, the U.S. Toolkit, which has been rescinded, but some of the information is still valid. Though we don't refer to the toolkit itself, we can still use the laws that it's based on, and then some samples. Just to start us off with a few WIDA news items. These were in the last newsletter that I sent out. So just want to make you aware there is a new focus bulletin that examines multilingual learners with limited or interrupted formal education. And then there are some featured resources on science and math that I wanted to provide you with links for. Additionally, there is a new resource from WIDA Access Online Test Administrator Scripts in American Sign Language. And then some updates and reminders, the WIDA Access for kindergartners for the new test administration was on November 11th. And then managing student information for WIDA Access testing was on the 13th. You can view those webinars through the login page on the secure portal under webinars. So they've recorded all of those and those are available for viewing. All right, talking about our English language learners at the high school level. One thing we want to make sure everyone understands is that every student has a unique learning journey. So no matter who they are, where they come from, or what their situation, it's unique to the child, and we have to look at them individually. So looking at some of those requirements, there are some legal requirements when we enroll English language learners. Despite their parents or their situation, the law says they're entitled to a free public elementary or secondary education. We have to provide that access, and that comes to us through legislation or a court case of Plyer versus Doe. So no matter who they are, if they are of legal school age, we have to enroll them. So we have to ensure also that we have policies in place in our districts that tell how our enrollment practices and policies for students. And we must also know that districts are prohibited from requesting any documents that reveal a family's immigration status. They're prohibited of asking questions about their status that might expose them, or engage in any practices that kind of deter them from enrolling based on their immigrant status. So we can't make it inaccessible for them in any way. And all children have to have the right to attend full-time as long as they are between 5 and 21 years of age, have residency in the district, or are intending to reside in the district. They may be homeless and staying with someone. Plyer versus Doe again recognizes that they cannot be denied free public education if they are a district resident. Students between 18 and 21, including our English learners, have a right to attend school and receive a high school diploma. They don't really age out of the right to an education. We look for ways for them to access a diploma if they wish one, which may be a different route other than attending our high schools. So have a conversation with the students and their parents to determine their goals. Knowing what they want to achieve helps us decide the best pathway. A district shouldn't discourage older students from enrolling. And again, they have the right to attend until 21. And those alternate pathways might be enrolling in a college course specific for older students, or our extended learning courses, or an online program as well. So there are different options for them that we have to explore. So when a parent it comes to enroll, if they happen to be homeless, we enroll them immediately, even if they're unable to produce records that we would normally need for enrollment. And they must ensure that homeless students are not segregated out into any alternate programs or any waiting areas that keep them from enrolling at that time. So we follow the same rules of McGinty-Bento as we would for any other student. Any data that's required to be collected, we can hold off a few days after the enrollment process if you feel like that's going to make the parents uncomfortable or not give proper information. So we don't want them to feel like we're using their immigrant status as a basis for enrollment. So any of those chilling effects that asking for some of that information might have, we can hold off and try to get that from them at a later date. Also, we want to make sure that people understand that some students who are regarded as homeless can have an extension to vaccinations. It used to be 30 days. There are some new requirements and regulations, and I put links to all of those on the right side of the page there so that you can investigate those thoroughly or more further. But there are some leniency on enrollment for homeless students. Okay, from the U.S. Department of Justice, districts may request proof of residency, like copies of our phone and water bills or a lease agreement, but they cannot ask about citizenship, immigration, or require a can't think of the word, a social security card or something like that. So states can request proof of age, but it doesn't have to be a birth certificate. It could be the family Bible, or could be a foreign place of birth or foreign birth certificate. Sometimes we need those translated. There are tools that we can use. There is a link here again about the requirements of birth certificate, proof of age. All right, the next thing I want to share with you is a video that is a few years old, but everything in it is still applies to today. Let me see if I can get it to play for us. There we go. There we go. It starts out quiet.
That is a landmark case which establishes that undocumented children have a right to attend free public school where they reside. The Supreme Court looked at a Texas statute which allowed school districts one of two options with respect to the education of undocumented students. The first option was educating them, but the district would not get a per diem allocation for that child. And the second option was to exclude the children completely. In the Plyler case, school district in East Texas, which took the second option, excluding undocumented children completely. They filed suit in federal court in Texas, and that case went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, which actually declared the Texas state statute unconstitutional as a violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. They found that that statute denied equal protection of the law to these folks in spite of the fact that they did not have a right to be in the United States under federal immigration law. The court acknowledged that the current immigration system, even in those years, was broken, and that these children were not legally entitled to be in the United States. But the court also looked at the greater good for the community and said it's better to educate these children and integrate them into our communities, and found that indeed they did have the ability to go to school where they live.
Okay, so that's Roger Rosenthal, who's an attorney who handles a lot of legal cases for English learners and immigrants. He's since retired, but his videos you'll still be able to find on Coloring Colorado. They list several on issues such as enrollment, and they are still based on law. All right, so enrollment. And step one, every parent who comes to enroll in our school system must complete a language use survey, regardless of their home language. So any student, we have to at least ask those 3 questions that ask about their language. And step 2, if it's determined that a language other than English has some effect on or creates a barrier for the students in an English-only classroom, we would give them an assessment, which is our WIDA screener. If it is at the very beginning of the school year, we have 30 days to give that assessment. Later in the school year, we have to give it within 15 days of enrollment. The reason for that goes down to step 5 in the notification of parents. Our ESSA statement says that we need to notify parents within 30 days of the beginning of the school year and 15 days later in the school year. So in order to notify them, we will have had to assess them. So that's the reason for those 2 times. If the student qualifies after taking the WIDA screener, then we would enroll them in a language program in our school district. So if they don't pass, or if they don't qualify through the WIDA screener, then we would enter them as a non-EL, and they would be placed in general ed classes. So those are the processes of identification for our English learners. So who is involved in enrolling our students? At enrollment, it should be our admission representative. That might be the secretary, our counselors, our ELD staff, our parents, and our students. Again, that's through the language use survey, but it also might include some language or district assessments to see where the student is on their abilities and to attend some of the coursework. We can look at their educational background, review their transcripts, any documents they bring with them. So doing a thorough investigation of their educational experience at enrollment. And then when looking at ELD services, the administrator, the counselor, the EL coordinator, the ELD teacher, those should all be involved in determining what services the student needs and what kind of schedule they're given. It based on their proficiency level and the resources that are available in the school district. And then for placement and graduation planning, we usually rely on the counselor, the EL coordinator, the content teachers, and the student and the parents on what their goals are. So again, we look at the content and ELD courses the student needs to take and create that graduation plan. So when we're creating that plan for the students, We should ask the refugee, the immigrant, the families, and the students about their educational history and goals. And then there are 5 things that we look at. We identify the students who may be English language learners through that screener. We determine if their education was interrupted or inconsistent. We assess the students' content knowledge and home language literacy. We screen them for trauma. And then we assess if they're gifted and talented or have disabilities and make the appropriate placement for those as well. When we identify the students, many but not all refugees and immigrant students enter school as English language learners. So we have to make sure that just because they're an immigrant or a refugee, we don't just assume that they need EL services. Some of our students come very proficient in English, so we have to make sure that we appropriately screen them and place them, not based on where they come from, but based on their abilities. Okay, federal law requires that we assess them for proficiency in English if we have identified them through a screener and through our screening process. Next, we're going to determine if they had an interrupted or inconsistent previous education. So that involves speaking with the parents, doing an interview, speaking with the student themselves, and helping to determine if there are any gaps in their education. That helps us with where we want to place them in our school system and what courses they should take. Then we're going to look at their content knowledge and home language literacy. If they come with transcripts, we should evaluate the transcripts they bring with them to see where they were in school, what courses they have taken, and how that carries over into our American school system. Home language literacy skills are a good predictor of their ability to gain literacy skills in a second language. So we need to know where they are in their literacy development as well when we place them. And then students knowing whether they had endured trauma in their travel here, what they have seen, what they have what experiences they've had helps us a lot, knowing how we need to work with them and what services we might need to provide for them. And finally, assessing students for gifted and talented. Often we don't do that with our English language learners mostly because the assessments we're not sure what to use, but they are entitled to any services that they qualify for. So we should have some sort of a reliable and valid assessment in place that can assess them in languages other than English, or universal screeners that can tell us the needs of the students. All right. So another factor that we need to include is making registration and enrollment accessible to our parents. One way to do that is making sure we have enrollment personnel who have some cultural competence. We can have training for the district. We can make sure that they know how to contact someone who can translate or interpret for them as well. Providing staff with second language acquisition professional development or second language proficiency, giving them the tools that they need to be able to communicate with parents. Then annually, we should review regulations with the front office staff and registration staff so they're aware of the policies that are in place for enrollment and the rights of parents. Training the staff in the processes, the need for a language use survey, and then who do they contact if a student is identified as a potential English language learner. All of that process needs to be in place. And also making sure that we know how to contact the parents, whether they need something in another language, or having the correct phone number or email address, all of that information, so that when the window to report the identification back to the parents comes, we're ready for that and we know how to contact them. So all of that's important when they're registering. So again, making sure that everyone is aware that educating our English language learners is a responsibility of all educational staff, not just the English language development department. Our administrators especially need to know the legal requirements of serving our English language learners. And then counselors, because they are often the ones who have first contact with English learners and families when they're developing our graduation plans, they also need to be aware of rules and regulations. They have to be aware of the appropriate course schedule for English learners and what allowances we can make, and understanding how to transfer credits from their previous schools. And again, the legal requirements for our language use survey and providing things in a language the parent can understand. This is kind of a checklist for secondary EL enrollment. Again, thoroughly reviewing their prior transcripts and awarding credits where they are due, asking for a detailed explanation of math coursework. And the reason I say that is a lot of other countries, their math courses are set up differently than we have. They merge several courses into one and do them for extended periods of time. So we might need to talk to the students and ask them what kind of math courses they took, and maybe even give them like an end of course assessment that we would give our English speaking students to get an idea of what they know how to do and what they have received education in. Then also speaking with the family or guardians to determine their graduation plans and what necessary coursework they'll have to complete in order to graduate. Explaining our grading system and the different pathways towards graduation, and reviewing the requirements for graduation in that local district, and possibly what they could do to get ready for post-secondary if they're going to college or some kind of vocational training. Additionally, we ensure that the student is placed in the appropriate graduation cohort. So we want them to graduate in their age group, their appropriate course grade level. Make sure that we're providing instruction on access to the grade book to parents so that they can keep track of where their students are and understand our grading policies. Review school policy, attendance policy, transportation, and how to navigate the cafeteria. Providing them with a list of extracurricular activities and clubs that we offer so that the student can be involved fully in our school system. And then possibly assigning a buddy to assist the new English learner throughout the first day or week of school, just to get around, find their lockers, and find their classes. So those are some good things to keep in mind when we're enrolling them. As far as looking at their transcripts, the students who enter from another country might have completed a lot of coursework that we don't, with this different name from what we call them. So having a good idea of what that content was by discussing that with parents and students gives us a better picture of what the students might need. We might have to align the courses through that discussion. But this is a critical step in giving them the credits that they should receive, and setting up a coursework plan for the future to help them with graduation. Your school system should have a plan in place on how you will review your transcripts from other countries, determine who's going to be responsible for evaluating the foreign transcripts, a time frame or timeline for those evaluations. How long will it take before you determine what the student needs in order to graduate, and specific steps for considerations in that evaluation. One thing you want to make sure is if they do bring a transcript with them, that you check it for authenticity and make sure it comes from a qualified source, That might involve contacting the sending school, the embassy, or the Ministry of Education in the country that they came from. Again, interviewing the parents and the students themselves is a good starting point for getting an idea. Once this procedure is in place, then it should be documented and a plan written out for future use. There's one school that I visited that they had all of these notebooks about what school systems were like in different countries, so that when a student enrolled, they could pull that out and just kind of take a look at what the requirements were in the sending countries and how they might relate to coursework in our country. So that helped with determining credits that they could award and what other courses might still be needed. This is a sample of what a foreign transcript might look like. And when we're looking at this, we look for the school year, the country of origin, the grade level the student was in on the transcript, the grading scale, if available, what courses were taken, and how many hours per week were they in school. There are some school systems that they go Monday through Saturday and only take one day off. There are some that don't take summers off. So knowing how their school system is set up is very important as well when we look at the number of credits we should be awarding. I have several resources on this page of how to evaluate transcripts, things you can look at, sources to look at what other countries, how their educational systems are set up. So those are all different links that you can look at to get more information on different countries. Then some do's and don'ts. Make sure again that you check for authenticity. Make sure that you interview the student and their parents and discuss what it says in their transcript just to get some clarity. Determine eligibility of course equivalencies, and update credit transfer on the student's official transcripts. So don't forget to give them credit on your transcripts. Ensure transcripts are in a language other than English are translated. We don't require that you have them translated by a company, but that's also a good idea if you don't have someone that can understand them completely. Again, consult those indexes that I shared on the previous slide to give you an idea of how their school system's set up. Notify teachers and supervisors of students of the courses that they've completed and some of the skills that can be expected for the students. And then again, establish a procedure for informing the students and parents of the results of your evaluation of their transcript. Again, don't accept things that have alterations that don't look like they're the original document or have inconsistencies. So if it looks like someone has written on them and scratched something out or a handwritten note, you need to check the validity of that document. Don't use family members to translate the document because they may not give you the fully reveal what's included in the transcript. Don't accept paraphrased or interpretive translation of evaluations. Don't delay placing them in a program while you wait for the transcripts. Put them in a general course load until you know what you're going to do as far as their transcripts are evaluated. And don't use language as a reason for not communicating with the parents. All right. There are some services, as I said, that are available for a fee that will professionally translate them. We don't require that, but there's an article here from REL Northwest that might be helpful. And then this next slide, these are some foreign credentialing evaluation services that are available. We don't say that you have to use, we don't endorse them. I'm just providing these as samples to help you in your search. If a student comes with no transcripts, then again, we might have to do that interview with the parents and the students. What we would do first off is place them by age. And there's a chart on the next page that will give you that information. We try not to put them more than one grade level below their age. And when we're looking at where to place them, again, we could go to the content teachers and ask for an assessment that would give us an idea of where the student is. So if you can have some of those kind of on file that you can use to assess new incoming students, that would be helpful as well. Then here's this chart as far as age and the grade level we assign. Again, we can't put them more than one grade level, their appropriate age group. And then when we're assigning credits, the Missouri Graduation Handbook is a good place to start. Usually we say if they have less than 5 credits, they should be a freshman, 5 credits a sophomore, 10 a junior, 17 or more a senior, and if they have more than 24, they're eligible for graduation. There are some details in our graduation handbook that they have to, courses they have to take and guidelines they have to meet, but this is the general outline for graduation requirements. When we're looking at placement, schools have to take into account the diverse nature of our students, have willingness to accept, embrace, and navigate the complexity of teaching and learning in collaboration with others. So it says whatever programmatic approach, it must be recognized and build on the identity, language, and knowledge that our English learners already possess. So we want to make sure we're acknowledging what they've already accomplished, what they already know. We don't want to put them in classes where they've already gone through that instruction and passed those courses and they're bored in the classrooms. So knowing where they are and what they've accomplished is the first step. So if we do not place them in the proper class, we could have loss of instructional time, unnecessary retention, and erroneous referrals to intervention and referral services. We want to rely on report cards and transfer information, documentation. We disregard native language academic strengths and areas of need of improvement. And if we're not looking and putting them in the proper place, we'll continue those gaps in their education. So we have to be very careful that we place them properly. And again, this is a shared responsibility. Those policies and procedures need to be in place. We, again, may need additional assessments. We can include writing samples. You could provide a picture prompt and have the students do a short write just to give you an idea of where they are in their ability to produce writing. And it could even be in their home language just to give you an idea of their educational background. Counselors need to create a graduation plan and for proper placement into classes. So that's one of our first steps, is creating that graduation plan. Again, that it might include some diagnostic assessments, some multiple measures of determining where they are and what they need to do. And even after you place them, optimally every 6 weeks, checking in with the student, making sure that they're on track and that we have properly placed them. Again, that we have that checklist, to make sure that your plan is based on educational theory, that there are resources needed to effectively implement whatever you choose, and that your school has qualified staff to implement those choices. So here's some more of that checklist. How are placement in a particular EL program and the provisions of your services informed by the student's proficiency level, their grade level, and their educational background? Are the services provided to all English learners, regardless of scheduling, conflict, grade, disability, and native language? So are you providing those EL services if they need them Does the chosen EL program include instruction aligned to our ELP standards and grade level content? Do the services and programs provide English learners in all grades with equal opportunities to participate meaningfully and equally in the school's curricular and extracurricular programs? And are the services designed to provide more intensive instruction for English learners who are less proficient in English? Are they at the highest level of English language proficiency? Are those students able to receive English services until they have exited from the program? So not stopping at level 3, but continuing on to offer them programs until they're ready for exit. Are there additional EL services and programs for students who have not made expected progress? Those long-term English learners. And what criteria is your district using to evaluate your program and determining if it's meeting the needs and goals of your English learners? And then, for example, are there processes and criteria in place to monitor ELs in and across your programs, both academic content and English language proficiency? Are there processes for modifying or replacing an EL program if the data shows that students are not making the gains that they should be over a reasonable period of time? And is there a process for monitoring your ELs after they exit the program to make sure they're still being successful? So also we need to have some data-informed course scheduling for students who have remedial or low level of abilities. So students who took a high-level math class in Mexico, for example, are they being placed in remedial math class just because of language? They may start to think of themselves as remedial and not not push themselves, not rise above that. So we need to make sure we match them up to their abilities. Additionally, students who are placed in lower tracks may not receive courses that are required for graduation. So if we keep them in those low-level classes until they gain English, they might not have all the courses they need in time for graduation. So those things need to be kept in mind. Secondary districts, schools, and public charter schools have systems of courses and requirements that can be difficult for them to navigate because of the language and the culture gaps. We have to make sure that we help them negotiate through those. And then a lot of times we find out that 12th grade English learners learn they don't have enough credits to graduate right before graduation. So we have to communicate early on that what the requirements are and sit down with them to make a plan and make sure that they're on the right course and how long it's going to take them and what their options are. Again, we want to make sure that we look at their assets of home language, culture, and experience and bring those into the classroom, develop a well-made graduation plan that allows them to develop their English alongside of the coursework. And the plan should develop the ELs, be developed with the English learners and their parents, and reevaluated each semester to make sure they're on the right path and making progress. So the optimal principle when we're scheduling for multilingual learners is to collect their language proficiency data, both in the first and the second language, schedule to the strengths of the students, schedule ELD courses as sheltered courses first, and if the sheltered courses aren't available, hand schedule content courses with qualified educators, and then schedule core classes before electives, but please don't leave them out of some of the electives that they would like to take. We do have the Missouri Options program. So as I said, discuss with the student what their goals are. And sometimes that might be just to get a diploma. Maybe they're getting close to the 21 age limit. we can suggest things like Missouri options for them. And so there's a link here to more information about the Missouri Options program and how we can assist the students with that. Another thing that we want to keep in mind is that ICAP and develop that graduation plan from the time they arrive and the whole process has started. The counselors should begin developing that graduation plan. And their plan may not look exactly like the native English speakers plan. Again, there's a link to the development of the graduation plan site on our DESE webpage, but it looks something, well, this is for students who want to do a GED or CTE plan. We have a 1-year plan and a 2-year plan. Excuse me. So this is one sample pathway. We want to make sure that our ELD teachers as well as the content teachers are up to speed on how to get our English learners ready for graduation through professional development, design, and implementation of curriculum that prepares them for college. And that's to be compliant with new regulation. So new regulation states that each student prior to his 9th grade year at public school, including charter schools, may develop, with help from the school guidance counselor, a personal plan of study, which shall be reviewed regularly as needed by school personnel and the student's parent and guardian, and updated based on the needs of the student. The plan shall present a sequence of courses and experiences that conclude with the student reaching his or her post-secondary goals, with implementation of the plan of study transferring to the program of post-secondary education or training upon students' high school graduation. So that's our law that we need to be compliant with. The plan shall include, but is not limited to, graduation requirements, career and post-secondary goals, coursework or program of study related to career and post-secondary goals, which shall include, if relevant, opportunities that the district or school may not directly offer. Grade appropriate and career-related experiences as outlined in the grade level expectations of the Missouri Comprehensive Guidance Program, and student assessments, interest inventories, or academic results needed to develop, review, and revise personal plans of study, which shall include, if relevant, assessments, inventories, or academic results that the school district or charter may offer. So these 5 criteria are mandated for schools implementing a 4-year plan and are embedded in the ICAP template. Guidance is used per the language of Senate Bill 638. However, that language has been changed because of Statute 2428 to the school counseling program. And it is also antiquated language that's now referred to as ICAP. The language and statute cannot be changed, so it is important to note that these changes are in this presentation. So beginning in the left column of the template, the following slides outline each section of the ICAP, and best practice is that an ICAP should be reviewed each semester with parents' or guardian signature, but this is not mandated by the law. So this is best practice to follow. We have also created a new pathways, clusters, and pathway for career planning. So this new document is linked with this image. You can go and investigate it further. And there is a presentation that was done by our counseling department on the career clusters framework that you can view on your own at a later time that gives you more information. Here is page 2 of the ICAP that just breaks down further the information that is covered, like co-curricular activities, web-based learning, or entrepreneurships, assessments, and some of those Missouri Connections options as well. If you look at the bottom, again, we might list the number of years that they were in this position. Some work-based examples, awards and recognitions are good to add there. But at the bottom, we're talking about graduation requirements, and for English learners and all students, they look for the American Civics exam, the American Constitution exam, the US Constitution, and 30-minute CPR first aid instruction. Most students should have 4 language arts credits, 3 math credits, 3 social studies credits, 3 science, 1 fine art, 1 practical art, 1 credit of physical ed, a half credit of health, a half credit of personal finance, and 7 electives. That totals 24 to meet all graduation credits. But for English learners, they do not have to have 24 credits if there is an agreed upon pathway for them that would meet all of the requirements. So again, reviewing their transcript, as it says in our graduation handbook on pages 9 through 10, students who transfer from another state, country, or homeschool can graduate on successful completion of an individualized plan, which may not have those 24 credits. And seniors who transfer from other states or countries can be graduated without meeting the requirements of that section 170.011 statute that says they must complete the civics requirement. That says they have to complete all of those requirements listed below, except for they have to still complete the civics requirement and the CPR requirement. So there are some allowances for students who come from other countries. Here's a link to that individual career and academic plan document. You can review the translated document in Spanish through the other link. And then here are some sample instructional pathways to give you an idea of how it could be set up for students on a 4-year plan or a 3-year plan to a diploma. We also have available some regional career advisors that can walk you through setting up an ICAP or a graduation plan for our English learners, and their email addresses are provided there as well. And then here are a few sample graduation plans from other districts, just to give you an idea of what they have done to get students ready for graduation. There's the first part of that one and the second. Those will be available to you as well. There's the ending for parent signatures to review that. And then I've gathered a few resources for you. Bryce is a good resource for talking about helping students through graduation. The culturalorientation.net gives some ideas to help with graduation. That's the CAL organization also does. United Nations High Council for Refugees, the U.S. Committees for Refugees and Immigrants, and Forging Graduation Pathway, Evaluating Foreign Transcripts. Those are all good resources to give you ideas. Additionally, these are some other resources for evaluating transcripts. So Scholaro, I'm not sure how you say that. Their database tells you what graduation requirements are in other countries. Again, some of these others also do that. And then just a few different articles on making sure that we meet the needs of our English learners that were used in creating this presentation. The ESSA graduation rate guidance at the bottom is also a really good document to look at. You can also talk to our regional mail specialist and get their assistance in working on graduation plans. They've all helped with a few of those. And for counselors especially, there are 2 documents to help them with creating plans for English learners and meeting their needs. So those are there as well. I saw in the question, where do you find a presentation slide deck? If you look at the note taker, which is, here we go, let me put that link in here again. Our note taker has a link to the hub And the hub will have listed all of these slides and the note taker, and then a recording of this as well. So you'll have access to all of the slides and the links through that. And then I'm going to stop talking now and ask if you have any questions. That was all I had to share. And make sure that you know that you can contact me anytime for more information as well. So I'm going to quit sharing the screen. There we go. And allow you to ask any questions if you'd like to. I know that was a lot to dump on you all at once, but you do have access to all of this in the slides. All right. If there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and end that for today. I want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and hopefully we will see you not in December. We do not have an EL check-in for December because of the holidays, but we will be back in January when we get ready for the testing season. Happy holidays, and I hope to see you all in January.